Dear students, many subjects are studied on various levels. Consider biology, for example. Molecular biologists study the chemical compounds that make up living things. Cellular biologists study cells, which are made up of many chemical compounds and at the same time are themselves the building blocks of living organisms. Evolutionary biologists study the many varieties of animals and plants and how species change gradually over the centuries. Economics is also studied on various levels. We can study the decisions of individual households and firms, or we can study the interaction of households and firms in the market for specific goods and services. Or we can study the operation of the economy as a whole, which is just the sum of the activities of all these decision makers in all these markets. The field of economics is traditionally divided into two broad subfields: microeconomics and macroeconomics. Microeconomics is the study of how households and firms make decisions and how they interact in specific markets, while macroeconomics is the study of economy in wide phenomena. Macroeconomists might study the effect of borrowing by the federal government, the changes over time in the economy's rate of unemployment, or alternative policies to raise growth in national living standards. Macroeconomics, the study of economy-wide phenomena, including inflation, unemployment, and economic growth. In macroeconomics, we study this ordinary business of life in the aggregate. We look at the behavior of the economy as a whole. The key variables we study include total output in the economy, the aggregate price level, employment and unemployment, interest rates, wages, and foreign exchange rates. The subject matter of macroeconomics includes factors that determine both the levels of these variables and how the variable change over time. The rate of growth of output, the inflation rate, changing unemployment in periods of expansion and recession, and appreciation or depreciation in foreign exchange markets. Macroeconomics is policy oriented. It asks to what degree can government policies affect output and employment? To what degree is inflation the result of unfortunate government policies? What government policies are optimal in the sense of achieving the most desirable behavior of aggregate variables, such as the level of unemployment or the inflation rate? Should government policies attempt to achieve a target level of foreign exchange rate? Often, economists are asked to explain the causes of economic events. Why, for example, is unemployment higher for youngsters than for older workers? Sometimes, economists are asked to recommend policies to improve economic output. What, for instance, should the government do to improve the economic well being of youngsters? When economists are trying to explain the world, they are scientists. When they are trying to help improve it, they are policy advisors. In general, statements about the world are of two types. One type is positive and other is normative. One type, such as polys, is positive. Positive statements are descriptive. They make claim about how the world is. The second type of statement, such as normas, is normative. Normative statements are prescriptive. They make a claim about how the world ought to be. A key difference between positive and normative statements is how we judge their validity. A positive statement is an assertion about how the world is. A normative statement is an assertion about how the world ought to be. When economists make normative statements, they are acting more as policy advisors than scientists. Economists try to address their subject with a scientist's objectivity. Like all scientists, they make appropriate assumptions and build simplified models in order to understand the world around them. Two simple economic models are the circular flow diagram and the production possibility frontier. Economists who advise policymakers offer conflicting advice either because of differences in scientific judgment or because of differences in values. At other times, economists are united in the advice they offer, but policymakers may choose to ignore it. So, students, macroeconomics is a branch of economics dealing with the performance, structure, behavior, and decision making of an economy as a whole. This includes regional, national, and global economies. Macroeconomists study topics such as GDP, unemployment rates, national income, price indices, output, consumption, unemployment, inflation, saving, investment, energy, international trade, and international finance. So, closing our discussion here, we will continue our online lecture to complete our course.